Good morning, everyone. Let's stand up and worship now.
You, Lord, oh, your mercy never fails me. All my days I've been held in your hands. From the moment that I wake up until I lay my head, I will sing of the goodness of God. All my life you have been faithful. All my life you have been so, so good. With every breath that I am able, I will sing of the goodness of God. I love your voice. You have led
sorrow and dead in my sin, lost without hope and no place to begin. Your love made a way to let mercy come in. When death was arrested and my life began, ash was redeemed, only beauty remains. My orphan heart was given a name. My mourning grew quiet, my feet rose to death. When death was arrested and my life began. Oh, your grace, so free, washes over me. You have made me new, now life begins with you. It's your endless love pouring down on us. You have made us new, now life begins with you. Released from my chains, I'm a prisoner no more. My shame was a ransom he faithfully bore. He canceled my debt and he called me his friend. When death was arrested and my life began. Oh, your grace, so free, washes over me. You have made me new, now life begins with you. It's your endless love pouring down on us. You have made us new, now life begins with you. Our Savior displayed on the criminal's cross. Darkness rejoiced as though heaven had lost. But then Jesus arose with our freedom in hand. That's when death was arrested and my life began. Oh, your grace, so free, washes over me. You have made me new, now life begins with you. I thought by now they'd fall, but you have never failed me yet. Waiting for change to come, knowing the battle's won. For you have never failed me yet. Your promise still stands. Great is your faithfulness, faithfulness. I'm still in your hands. This is my confidence. You've never failed me yet. I know the night won't last. Your word will come to pass. My heart will sing your praise again. Jesus, you're still enough. Keep me within your love. My heart will sing your praise again. Your promise still stands. Great is your faithfulness, faithfulness. I'm still in your hands. This is my confidence. You've never failed. Your promise still stands. Great is your faithfulness, faithfulness. I'm still in your hands. This is my confidence. You've never failed me yet. I've seen you move the mountains, and I believe I'll see you do it again. Made a way when there was no way, and I believe I'll see you do it again. I've seen you move the mountains, and I believe I'll see you do it again. You made a way when there was no way, and I believe I'll see you do it again. Your promise still stands. Great is your faithfulness, faithfulness. I'm still in your hands. This is my confidence. You've never failed. Your promise still stands. Great is your faithfulness, faithfulness. I'm still in your hands. This is my confidence. You've never failed me yet. I never
Thank you, everyone, for worshiping with us online and here in person. Take a few minutes if you're here to meet and greet your neighbors.
It's a little chilly outside, so we moved inside today, but it's nice to have the space that we can be together. And if you're here and you're looking around, there's a lot of progress that's been happening. We now have a really great kitchen floor, so you can walk through and not feel like you're going to end up under the house. So, no, it's been great. There's been so much progress being made, and so we're really excited. We're getting closer and closer to seeing more done. And I was thinking this week, when me and Sandra bought our house that we're in now, it was built for us. And we had a lot of delays. Like when we first signed the contract, they said, you'll be done in 3 months. We'll have a house in 3 months. And I was like, awesome. We picked out all of our materials, all of our colors, and then nothing happened. And 2 months went by, nothing happened. And 3 months went by, nothing happened. 4 months went by, nothing happened. And I'm like, okay, so I thought we were supposed to have a house a month ago, and now we still have nothing. And I think it ended up being a total about a year from like start to finish when we actually got in the house. And going through all that, I remember people telling me, you know, like, I know it's frustrating. I know there's a lot. It's a lot of work. It's a lot of weight. It's a lot of patience. But once you get in there, it'll seem like it was a flash. And so I was thinking about that when it comes to what we're doing here. Like, there's so many people who have been here, you know, week in and week out working and putting in the effort. And I know that right now it might seem a little daunting, but I feel like just like that God's promise of things to come, like, we're going to be done and we're going to look back and be like, that wasn't so bad. We could do it all again. So I say all that to say, thank you to those that have been here every week serving and helping. I'm also saying it because we need more help. If you are available on Saturday mornings or even during the week, there's a lot of things going on. There's a lot of work to be done, and we could definitely use the more hands, the merrier. We talk about it a lot. We do have a good time fellowshipping, but we also get a lot done, and we could get even more done if there were more folks that could be here. So would love if you could, you know, we're going to be doing the work days now every Saturday for the rest of October and now into November. We just want to keep the progress moving. So every Saturday at 9 a.m. we'll be here, putting in the work and the time. If Saturday does not work for you, you can come during the week. We can coordinate with JD or myself or my dad or someone else that can be here. There's always, you know, again, stuff to be done. So reach out to myself, Josh at eastpoint.org. You can email JD at eastpoint.org or send him a message via text, and we can coordinate and get you guys plugged in. But again, thank you to everybody. It's just been, you know, for what we have done, there's been a ton of progress made. So it's really exciting. Next week is going to be our monthly communion service, so we're looking forward to that. It'll also be Halloween. It's kind of ironic that we'll be doing, communion on Halloween. But it's going to be, we're going to have a lot of fun. Some of us may be dressed up, who knows, I remember as a kid we had the Harvest Festival. It was, it wasn't Halloween, it was a Harvest Festival, and we all got to dress up as Bible characters. And there were a few, Transformers or Ninja Turtles mixed in. I think they were at the Last Supper, Leonardo and Donatello. So, but anyway, all that said, there's still opportunities to help with our youth and teen programs. And then Sunday mornings, we do have coffee and we have baked goods. And so if you could sign up to help provide some of those, that would be great. And then last but not least, we're going to take our offering. You can put your offering in the box in the back. You can give online at eastpoint.org/give. And you could also mail your offering here to the church. Again, we're raising money for the progress here. I think at last count we had close to 50, right, in the bank, Tammy, towards the building. So we're definitely making progress, which is awesome. We're working to find a lot of ways to cut costs here as we continue with the construction. So please be in prayer about what you can give and how you can help out in that way. And then I'm going to pray to God bless the offering and bless the service, and then JD will bring the message. God, we just thank you for who you are, God. We thank you that you have given us this space to be together, God, to worship you, to be together as a family, God. And when I think about the construction, when I think about the progress, and I think about the people, it's a family. We're here together working and helping each other, helping make progress at the house, God. And we're just excited for what you have for us. And we just ask that you continue to bless us, to lead us and guide us. Help us to be good stewards of this space you've given to us, God, and help us as we are looking to the future to just have the vision that you would have us to have so that we can continue down the right path and just grow Eastpoint to what it can be, God, and the family that we know that it already is. We ask this morning you would please bless the offering we're about to receive, bless the funds, multiply them, God, and help them to really impact the ministries, God, that you see fit. And this be with JD as he brings the message this morning, God. We're excited for the word of God to be shared, and help us this week to go and to share your love with others, Lord. In your name we pray. Amen.
All right, thank you, Josh. I stand out in the center. Here's where I need to stand. I can stand anywhere, right? Josh is restricted, but I can move around. All righty, hey, it's good to see you all. It was exciting to me. This is the first work day that I've had to miss, but to come back and see the progress is always very nice. And yesterday morning I was thinking all about you guys as I was hiking out towards the beach, thinking about you guys having to be here working on the house. So I appreciate you doing that. And I took care of the swimming for you guys, so that's all taken care of. And it's a nice water in Puerto Rico. It's very clear, very warm, much like this morning, right? Nice and no, I'm glad we can all be together. We're continuing today. We're doing Abram's discernment. Now, if you're familiar with discernment is a spiritual gift, and discernment, primarily, I can boil it down to simple terms. It means the ability to tell between right and wrong, that ability to be able to identify what's good and what's evil. And we see Abram has some of that. He's got discernment, because we've been looking at some of the different skills that Abram had as he was going to start this new nation. God says, I'm going to make of you a great nation. And, he's getting to be an old man with no kids. And he's like, well, where's this great nation coming from? But God said, I got lots of these things that you need to be doing first. You need to be going through these process. And today we're going to look at a situation where his discernment is tested. And it's a story that I think most, I'm going to give you the background for it. There's a little bit of context that you need to get for what's going on. The context of this is that we talked about how Abram and Lot split, because they were too big. And Lot looked out over the land and said, oh, look at that, the Jordan Valley there, well-watered. And later on, we're going to see a map of that, not right now, but later on we'll see a map that shows that well-watered thing. And he went and he stayed there. And he stayed there, and he ended up taking it, and he went and he set up his tent over in Sodom, because you're familiar with those towns, Sodom and Gomorrah. They're very famous because of the stuff that goes on there, and we have terms today that let us know about it. But what's going on is that they went there, and they had this, that's where Lot settled, and he was just sort of living there. Well, at this point in time, the kingdoms or the people that lived in the Jordan Valley were under the rulership of Persians, which they're not really called Persians in this thing, but that's what you'd best. They were Elamites, and Elamites are basically Persians if you think about it today. So they were there in Elam. The king of Elam, Cato Lamor. It's a. I'm probably slaughtering his name all the way around, but the CH is usually pronounced with a hard like a K, but it's like, and the name, because you divide it in half, it basically means he was the servant of. It's actually more like a Leagar, the name of the deity, but it's basically saying this thing says that he's a servant of his deity, and he was the Elamite king or a Persian king. It says, and he ruled over the Jordan Valley for 12 years. He ruled, and if you're saying, JD, I never know when you're just telling us a story and when you're telling us stuff out of the Bible. Well, you got a thing you can do here today. I'll help you out here. If you go to Genesis chapter 14, and you follow along in Genesis chapter 14, you're going to see what I'm telling you this morning, because it's all there. I'm just going to give you a little bit of the extra, because in Genesis 14, they don't let you know that the Elamites were Persians, that they're clear over in what today would be Iran, and we'll see that later as well. But he got together with three other kings. There were a total of 4 of them, because they had been ruling over this people for 12 years. In the 13th year, these folks started to rebel. They said, we're tired of you ruling over us, and geographically, you guys are way far away. And they are referred to as the kings of the north, because they actually came down when they started to go and battle with them, because in the 14th year is when they came through and they started their war path, and they started doing it. So they came through, and they wiped out. They were victorious over all of them, including Sodom and Gomorrah, which came out to fight against them, and they fought against Sodom and Gomorrah, and they captured them. Now, there's an interesting fact about and you'll see this in your text. It might say something about the bitumen pits if you're reading in your thing. Bitumen is something that's fairly common. If you've ever been to La Brea, with the La Brea tar pits, they call it, it's actually not tar. It is asphalt, and you might be surprised to find out that asphalt is not tar. It isn't. It is a natural substance, and the bitumen is and basically they're asphalt pits where the bitumen bubbles up to the surface from deep within the earth. Lighter chemicals burn off, the stuff gets away, and what's left is this dark, tarry, heavy material. So when they beat Sodom and Gomorrah, it says that the people, they were running away. And some of them, in their running away, ended up falling into these pits. And I thought the La Brea tar pits was really very fascinating if you ever get a chance, because one of the things it does is it preserves things. So that's the place we know more about in like ancient geographic stuff in the United States from the tar pits and probably most other things, because things would go down in there and be preserved. And so as they were able to pull things out of there, it's preserved. That in the frozen tundra up in Alaska we get some stuff from. But so they were there and they were defeated. And some of them ran away. The others ran into the hills to get away, but they all scattered. And so Cater Laomar and his cronies, they took Lot and all of his stuff, because remember Lot was so rich that they couldn't stay together with Abram. He took him and he captured him, and they all went away. So this is the context. This is kind of like all of that to get you to where our story begins of what's going on here. So they're there, they all went away, and that one of the people from Sodom, presumably, but there actually were 5 kingdoms involved. 2 of them we have no idea where they were. There's one that we are pretty sure where it was, Zoar. It's interesting. Just a little fun fact as you're reading through this. There are 9 kings involved. The 5 that were defending, the 4 that were attacking. 9 kings involved. 8 of them have their name repeated in the Bible. And 1 does not. And it says, and the king of Zoar. Actually, it says it's another name which is known as Zoar. But it's, I thought, how would you like to be that king? Everybody gets their name in the Bible but me, you know. What's the deal here? And so, but he didn't get mentioned by name. Zoar, is right in the area of Sodom and Gomorrah, and perhaps the other ones were as well. We don't know the exact location of Sodom and Gomorrah. Having them being destroyed makes it really hard to get geographic evidence of where exactly they were, but they were in that area just south of the Dead Sea. So we'll go, let's jump, here. This is the map here, and I put the modern nations on there just in case you do know your geography somewhat. You can get a picture of it. Clear over here is Elam. Now, Elam is like an area. And this area over here, like I said, this would have been like Persia at the time, or this became what would have been the Persians. They had to clear over here to do the battle. Where they left in order to begin their conquest was north of Damascus, so about 50 miles. But they all met like right here. There's 4 kings, and they came down through. Now here along the west bank and through these areas, this is the area where Lot is living. Let's go to the next map. Next slide. That was this thing zoomed in, and then I turned it on its side so you could actually see it a little bit better. If that totally confuses you, well, practice at being able to rotate things in your mind. Because that thing when we were looking at Damascus, I don't know if I'm walking off the screen online, but they met up here. This blue line, the red line rather, represents where the kings went when they went down through to the best of what we can drink, and they were conquering all these areas. Now, the main focus of our story and what we're going is when they got up here, this little area that I've kind of highlighted in yellow. This represents the area which you could see Zoar, but also Sodom and Gomorrah would have been right in this area. They were somewhere right in here was where the Sodom and Gomorrah were. This is where Lot lived. Now you'll notice in the map how this is very lush. All this thing here shows it's well watered. It's very lush. This is where the green stuff. This is the good area. This is the nice thing. Over here in Hebron, this is up where Abram is living. He's up here with his tent camped up in this area. This is by the Oaks of Mamre we talked about. That's right here in this area right here. So one of the people that when they were captured escaped. And he comes over and he tells Abram, that, hey, we've been captured. Your son's been captured. We have this bad thing going on. So I want you to just keep in your mind, because when we go off of this slide, we don't come back to it. So I want you to remember this area. It's referenced to where we are over here. And this little town right here, Salem, as you see the blue line, which is going to be what Abram does, ends right here in Salem. And that becomes important later on, because when we get into the discernment part of what's happening, if you can just sort of remember those things. So the kings come down, they're wiping everybody out. And the guy goes and he tells them that, hey, your nephew's been captured. And you would think that the high point of this story is Abram's rescue, when he goes through and he captures everybody back. But it's not. What happens here, there's a short part about it where it says they told Abram, he gets together all the men of his house, and he gets together a couple of his buddies. Now, one of his buddies is interesting. We talk about the Oaks of Mamre. Well, Mamre is one of his buddies. He gets together some others that are his allies. And they get together, and they go and they chase after them. And they chase after him all the way up to Dan. And he whoops on him. I mean, he beats him. And you might notice the little red lines here, how they're going, because they were going up, he's chasing, they meet here. The red lines are showing where they were just scattering away, trying to get away from him and his men, because he's chasing them all down. He's going after them. He's determined to get rid of all of them, and he's going to take back. And he captures back his nephew Lot and his family and all the people that are with him and their livestock and all the things. So as they're chasing these people down, they're recovering all the things, because of course they sacked Sodom and Gomorrah and these cities down here. And so he gets everything back and says, I'm going to take it back. So Abram redeems. We can go to the next slide. We got this one for the thing. There. Even got the verses there so you can make sure I'm giving you the right stuff. But when he comes back to that, and he comes back to Salem, And Salem it's an interesting city. We're not going to get into all the details of it. Some people would say, well, that was like the original Jerusalem. But the king of Salem comes out to meet him, and the king of Sodom comes up there to meet him. So they remember how they converged up there, because he's coming back with everything that's been taken from them. The king of Salem is a man named Melchizedek. Melchizedek is also a high priest. A high priest, in fact, the word Melchizedek, again, their names always mean something. It's important. You know, it's like that's one of the things I liked when I was in Puerto Rico is people, they always went, well, what does your name mean? You know, because names they mean something, and they should tell you something about you. And well, Melchizedek was, you know, he was basically, his name boils down into meaning he's the like priest or of righteousness, or the, you know, because basically he follows the God of righteousness. And so that's what his name kind of comes down to mean. And so, and you'll see it spelled different ways at different times depending upon which ancient form you're looking at, whether you're looking at the old cuneiform or the original Hebrew, or, you know, just different ways. But Melchizedek comes out to meet him. He's the high priest, and there's a term that's used for him, which is of the Most High God. And if you'll notice in your text, if you're looking at it, that's all capitalized for that. It's got like title text when they say it that way, because it's a title. It's Eliam. And this is a unique title, which was saying that he was a priest of God. Now, what's interesting, you remember when the priesthood was established? The priesthood was established through Aaron hundreds of years later. This is hundreds of years before there are Hebrew priests. And then if we go to the New Testament and we take a look at how Jesus is referred to, Jesus is known as a priest of the line of Melchizedek. You also have it in Psalms when they talk about the priesthood of Melchizedek will last forever. It's a priesthood that does not end. It's not a part of being from Aaron's line. It's not a lineage of the Aaronic priesthood, which lasted for a time. And then after Jesus, the Aaron priesthood ended, according to God, according to the Bible. That priesthood was done because the temple, when Jesus was the Melchizedek, the everlasting priest, when he died on the cross, and the veil was torn in two, removing the need for a high priest of the line of Aaron. So Melchizedek is a picture of Christ. And you may be noticing that Abram is also here a picture of Christ, because what's he doing? He is redeeming that which was lost. He's going and recovering and bringing it back. You'll find images or pictures of Christ throughout, not only stories like this, it's a thing to watch if you're watching a movie. There usually will be a Christ figure in a movie or in a book. There's all stories just about seem to follow certain lines where there is an evil or something where something is lost and something is redeemed. Now, I know that these days it's pretty popular to have nothing end up getting redeemed. It's just, you know, you have a whole bunch of loss. The movie ends and you go home and want to slit your wrists. But it's, you know, but in the movies that leave you feeling somewhat like, that was a satisfying story, there's almost always like a Christ figure in there, of somebody who is the one who is the redeemer of what's going on. And Abram is one, and the other one here, Melchizedek. And they come out to greet him. Now, the discernment comes into play, because Abram knows these kings in terms of he knows of them and knows their reputation, knows what's going on. And we know that when Lot first took off and went down into the valley, and he said he went down and set up his tent in Sodom, that Sodom was known for being people who were very ungodly. They were like anti-God, in fact. And that story is coming up, but we haven't gotten there. This is a pre-destruction of Sodom. And it's known for being a godless place. Well, Melchizedek comes out to meet him. And what he does is he comes out and he basically gives a blessing to Abraham. He says to him, blessed be Abram by God Most High, possessor of heaven and earth, and blessed be the God Most High, who has delivered your enemies into your hand. And Abram gave him a tenth of everything. See, he comes out and he blesses him. And the blessing is both a blessing for Abram and a blessing for God. He blesses Abram for his faithfulness in going after him. He says, that he blessed Abram by God Most High. Okay? But he blessed God for the victory. He said, Abram, good job. You went after him, you got him. But God is the one who rescued them. God is the one who gave you the victory. God brought them back and he blessed them. And Abram's response is to give him a tenth of everything. And he says, because he's the high priest, and he says, I want to honor you with what you've done. With you coming out here and blessing and recognizing. And we don't know what all took place in this ceremony that happened. But we know that Abram saw and said, this is a man of God, and I'm going to treat him as a man of God. I'm going to give him respect, and I'm going to honor him. Now, honor, frequently in the Bible, is used to represent what's taking place in terms of a financial remuneration. Like when he would talk about these different priests that were doing things, and they would say that he was worthy of double honor. That means twice as much pay, that he would be honored in that way. It doesn't always mean that, it means more than that, but that was often a part of what was going on. And so Abram is taking from the riches, and he's given them to Melchizedek, but what he's doing is much what Melchizedek did with him. He says, I'm giving them to you, Melchizedek, because you're a man of God, but I'm giving them to God because he did give me the victory. And I'm going to give back to God because he gave to me. I wouldn't have any of these spoils to give if it wasn't for you. So he gives them. Now, interesting, Melchizedek's kingdom is not one of the 5 kings. He's not one of the ones that went and got sacked, but Melchizedek came out. And we don't know. Maybe Salem did end up getting sacked, but it was not. He was not one of the 5 kings that was fighting against the kings from the north. And the other one that comes out, it's Bera. Now, Bera is the name of the king of Sodom, because he also went out to meet them. And I call this one Bera's bribe, because Abram knows Bera, and he knows his heart. He's got discernment, and he knows the righteous man from the evil man. And the king of Sodom, he says to Abram, just give me back my people, but take all the goods for yourself. See, he's saying, Melchizedek blessed you. I'm going to give you all the goods. I'm going to let you have everything. But Abram says, and it's interesting because he talked about it, what he had already done. He says, I have lifted my hand to the Lord, to God Most High, possessor of heaven and earth, that I would not take a thread or a sandal strap or anything that is yours. Because I don't want you to say I made Abram rich. He's basically, I know who you are, Sodom. I know how you operate. And you're making it like you're going to be very generous. You're going to give all this to me. But later on, it's going to come back and bite me. And I'm not going to give in to the short-term temptation of having some wealth and some money that it would be good for me when I know that that victory came from God, not from me. And I'm not going to take this stuff. And he wouldn't take it. He wouldn't take it. And he gave it all to, and basically, he said, the only thing I want is the food my men have already eaten. And I had these couple of other guys that came with me as allies, and they should have their share. They should get their share for what they risked to come along with me to do this. So I want them to get their share for my men for whatever they've eaten and whatever they've done. Let them, don't charge them for that basically because they've already eaten it. He said, and just basically, I'll go home. I'll take care of my men. You take care of these men that came along with me in terms of letting them have a share, and you keep everything else. I'm taking nothing from you. And I find myself, when I read this, I think about how often does life present us with something that just looks too good to be true? It's like, it's so tempting. I mean, this has to be of God, right? Because look at how I'm going to benefit. I'm being blessed. But Abram could have easily, he just had this thing with Melchizedek. He could have easily just said, like, man, Melchizedek just said that I was blessed, and this is part of that blessing. God's just going to give me all kinds of wealth. but he used his discernment. He considered the source, and he said, I'm not going to take, basically, I'm not going to take blood money. I'm not going to take money from you and allow you to get a foothold in my life. We joke sometimes about politics and things of that nature, and I don't think politics really has a role in church. I think that we should be civil people who are aware of civics and are concerned about what takes place. But it is my opinion, and I doubt that I'm alone, but I think it is extremely difficult to get to the highest levels of politics in any branch without having become corrupted along the way in some levels. Because there are so many ways in which deals are made. There are so many kings of Sodom saying, here, I'm going to give to you. But when I do, I've got my hook in you. And that's true. And I don't care what side of the aisle you're on. I don't care what I think that there is a natural temptation, which is why power and leadership is always a very vulnerable position. And we live in an age where we have the Christian superstars, right? We have pastors that have the mega churches, and they're all over the place, and they're on the radio and on TV, and there are things of this nature. And I think there's nothing wrong with that. But I think in the process, there's a huge target painted on them, and Satan goes after them. And it's one of the reasons why I think everybody in a position of leadership needs accountability, and lots of it. And the bigger your organization, the more that's going on, the more accountability you need, because you start to become guilty of reading your own press, listening to the reviews that you get, and people say, oh, that was so wonderful. And there are people where I could probably come up and belch a sermon and would come out and say, that was wonderful, no matter what. They may have been sleeping through the whole thing, but that's just what they do. And if I start to believe them, I really am wonderful, then I'm in trouble. See, what I count on, and what we need to count on, is that God uses our weakness. He uses our fallenness for his glory. And he takes my feeble efforts and he translates them into what would be necessary for him. He does that if I am surrendered to him, if I am following him. If I'm following my own ideas, my own brilliance or something like that, then God's going to say, well, great, you follow that, and let's see what you get. Let's see what happens with that. Or you can let me take charge. And I think he's doing that with all of us, where God says, I have plans for your life. I've got things for you. But you need to recognize that it is me doing these things. If you're going to go into everything with the notion that you are it, if you're going to go and say, well, I'm the one making the difference here, I've got these awesome talents, and that's why things are going on, then God says, I'll be happy to leave you to your awesome talents. The problem is that that's all you're going to have. And awesome talents, I find, always fail. They always do. And God never fails. We just sang, this is my confidence that you have never failed. You will never fail. I can count on you. Do we really count on him? Are we able to pursue with our household and our friends the evil which has come and wiped out a land? Can we chase after that and redeem what was stolen from the kingdom? And I believe we're a small force here. Abram had like 300 and, how many guys did he have? Like 360 guys or something, of 318 of his own household. His household included his servants and things of that nature. 318. We're not talking about he gathered together 20,000 men and chased after him. He took what God gave him, what he already had, and said, this is evil. I will pursue it, and I will redeem what is taken. And that's what he did. What's he calling you to redeem? What are you called to make right? Because there's probably something. God's got plans for us. He's got something where he wants you to use your discernment and say, is is what I'm after evil or is it good? Does it honor God or is it against God? Because if we don't use discernment to align ourselves with that which is good consistently, if we don't even take the time to practice our discernment, to try to take a look and say, what is going on here? Is this something for God? Is this something that is going to honor him and bring about what he considers right? Or is this something which I want to do because it makes me feel good, because it serves? And we don't like to think about this, but by and large, if we're going after what's going to make us feel good, it's because we're going after something that's evil. Because what's happened in those moments, if we've put ourselves on the throne, if we get ourselves on the throne instead of God, that's evil. And he says, follow me, and you will have way better seat than that throne you're trying to occupy that doesn't fit you well anyway. I'm going to put you where you need to be. So we need to practice our discernment, both in our individual lives as we do that, as well as in our collective life as a church, for us to look and say, what is good and what is evil? You know? Somebody could come by and say, hey, I know you guys have been working. I'm going to build the whole thing for you. I'm going to build you a new building. I'm going to build you all kinds of stuff. It's going to be great. Well, if we were to have that kind of an offer, I think the first thing we'd have to look and say, hey, what's the deal? Where is this coming from? What's really going to happen? Because it might be that we have sold the church to get a building, that we have sold our mission to get a building, and we're not going to do that. Because the building, as much as it takes time and effort and things that we're doing, that's not our focus. There it is. My bucket of tissues. That's not our purpose. Our purpose is Christ and making him known to the world. Let's pray. God, I thank you that Abram had discernment, that he was able to see what was good and what was evil. And Lord, help us to follow in his example. Help us to examine and to know what's going on, to look and to say that we will accept good from you, but we will avoid that which looks good but is just a counterfeit, is just Satan trying to wheedle his way into what is going on. Help us to follow you, to be close to you, and to always follow where you lead us and not where we want to go. In Christ's name, amen. All right. See you next week, if not before. I might see you before if you're here doing stuff with me. So, all right. We'll see you.